Hello, 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 and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Jameelah, and I am a master manifester, and I'm sure you are too because you are consuming content like this. The name of this lovely channel is Holistic Manifesting because I believe in the whole body, whole mind, and whole being experience when it comes to manifesting the amazing lives that we are choosing. What I'm discussing in this video is, I was actually going to start, let me do this. Because I have notes here. 5 powerful tactics that people who regularly manipulate other people use. So number 1 on that list that got my attention big time, and probably the number 1 tactic that I've seen and that I've experienced in my own life, is gaslighting. And I know a lot of people know what that is at this point, but it's a little bit more than just denying things as it occurred. It's also when people distort things. So instead of saying, it's like, okay, it's the same thing. Like if a kid is holding back, withholding the truth from you, this is the same kind of idea. So like you might say, did you go out with your friends? And it's like, yes. And now they know there's a friend that they're not supposed to hang with in that group. Okay, well, did you do anything you weren't supposed to be doing? No. So they're answering your questions and they're being very clear, but at the same time, they're gaslighting you because the way that you're asking the question, the line of questioning that you're giving is not pinpointing specifically what you want to know. And they know this, and they're just allowing you to lead the conversation, hoping that you don't ask the specific questions that would get you to the answers that you're looking for. It's also when people like twist your words around. So you say one thing to somebody and then they come back and argue something in opposite direction. And you're like, that's not exactly what I said. And you can stay real clear and you can repeat what you said very clearly and never diverge from it. And they'll still find a way to nitpick little things that you said inside of there just to win a debate. Whenever I've encountered somebody like this, I realize in the middle of the conversation that it's not about finding understanding, that it's about them not being wrong. It's about them being right. And you'll find that happens a lot when people have a naturally manipulative personality. Like they never just approach you as is and in clarity and like not having an agenda, not trying to make you think a certain way, not trying to make you feel a certain way. It's like they always have an angle that they're shooting for. And I grew up around people like this, and I was also married to a person like this. And sometimes I see these behaviors happening in my own children. So I know what it looks like when someone is purposely approaching you with an agenda all the time. My daughter was making fun of me because she was just like, you literally don't have like an agenda when you talk to people. And I'm like, you're not supposed to. And she was just like, how do you interact with other people and not realize that other people have agendas too? So shouldn't you be wondering why they're asking you a question, why they said a certain thing, what's their angle? And I'm like, no, people that are what you see is what you get, they don't walk around doing that. They kind of just take everything as it comes because they really don't have anything to hide. So when you're asking them a question, they're just going to answer it as is. They're not going to think about, well, if I say it like this or I answer like this, then that means that this might be the outcome. It's not that much trouble, right? Another thing that people who are very manipulative do, and I want to share these behaviors because I think that I'll always say people that are not meant to be in your space have the biggest effect on whether or not you expand and grow and manifest the life that you choose, right? They do a lot of guilt tripping. Now, a lot of us grew up in households where this was the common theme. I always tell people I was parented and managed through shame, blame, and guilt. Those were the number 3 things that went on. You got shamed for everything that you did wrong, that you thought wrong, that was not religious enough or something. You got blamed for things that necessarily wasn't even your fault, but somebody's got to take the blame. And depending on your type of parents, it wasn't going to be them. So even when they were wrong, you were still taking some blame and then being guilted into things that you didn't want to do or things that you do not truly believe in. And I always feel like I escaped this a little bit more than my older siblings because I came way later after them. And like my oldest sibling is 10 years older than me. So it's like I didn't get that hardcore training in that area. Like I got it, but then I saw that it was wrong so early on, and I challenged everything, and I was always like very, very annoying. I was annoying at school with teachers. I was annoying at home with my mom, because I always felt like, hey, just because you say something doesn't mean that it's true. Just because just because it's coming out of your mouth and you're an adult doesn't mean that it's true. And it's like people really didn't understand that. And so I remember many times being guilted into things all the time. Like, you need to be ashamed of yourself. That was the number one sentence I heard as a kid, as a young person. You need to be ashamed of yourself. Or even in marriage, because if we don't solve these issues, we get married to people and we have relationships and we wind up repeating these same personality traits. Even in that process, I remember always feeling like I was doing something wrong, even when I wasn't wrong in a particular interaction. I was guilted into being 24/7 minding of the children and taking care of everything, because that's what a good woman would do. And but I'm like, but I work full time though. And so that, and like people drop these little hints, and like they tell you about what somebody else's wife is doing or what somebody else's relationship is doing, and it makes you feel guilty, like, well, maybe I'm not doing enough there, maybe I'm not. And it's a constant thing. So if you grew up with that level of guilt happening with you, like if you can't make it to an event or you can't show up for somebody in a certain way, people, instead of saying, you know what, I understand it works, whatever, it doesn't work for you and that's fine, they rather just guilt you into it or give you a cold shoulder or a silent treatment or something like that. And it's just manipulation. People making you responsible for their problems. And a lot of times, I talk about this with money too, people calling to borrow money from you and things like that, or getting favors from you. And when you can't follow through with it, or you don't have the capacity, you got to come up with these big, long, trilogies related to why you can't do it, as opposed to just saying it's just not a good time. Because if you say that, then they get on the thing of telling you you're ungrateful, telling you don't care about them, telling you you're irresponsible to the people that care about you, all kinds of stuff. But anything that will trigger some guilt, right? And if guilt is already built into you, it's going to easily be triggered. Another thing is love bombing and withholding. So we already know people love bomb, right? And that's like coming in fast and furious. I mean, I think most women that I've talked to have experienced this at some point or another. I know I have. And it's because we fed these fairy tales and we believe that, people coming in and they feel a certain way about us. They're calling us constantly. They're texting us. They're sending text messages. They're sending gifts, they're buying things, they're showing up, they're sending flowers, all these things. And you're just like, oh my God, they're booking trips, in some cases. And they're doing all these things. They're buying your kids things, and you're just like, well, nobody would invest that much if you weren't the one. And that's the mindset that a lot of women have, and I'm sure this goes both ways with men and women. I just have my experience to share, but I'm sure that's what a lot of experienced people have. But, there's nothing that needs to be done in life that needs to be rushed through like that. And then we hear these little anecdotal stories of how people had fast friendships or fast relationships, and it all turned out great and wonderful. But I'm like, those are the exceptions. It's not necessarily the rule. For most connections, most relationships, most friendships, most romantic connections and all that, it takes time to build those things up. It doesn't just happen overnight. So when it comes to like the love bombing thing, you'll see where people like moving together after like a couple of months. And what's so funny about the thing when it comes to love bombing is a form of manipulation. And then I'll talk about what happens after love bombing, right? But in that process, it's like they're trying to snag you in before you actually know all their problems. And I've seen this over and over again. It's just like, hurry up and be my boyfriend, hurry up and be my girlfriend, hurry up and be my husband or my wife, hurry up before you actually see the full version of me. And then you make a qualified decision based on who I actually am, as opposed to who I showed up to be for 90 days, So many times that is the case. And it's just a manipulation tactic to make sure that you don't have all the information to make the right decisions. So when it comes to like vetting friendships, vetting relationships, you're trying to, but at the same time, you don't have all information. That's why not allowing yourself to be love bombed, allowing yourself to have a longer process. And the thing about it is, people that do that type of manipulation, they put pressure on you. Because I've had this happen too. I'm doing this. This is where my life is going. I'm going straight to the top. I'm going to create this, that, and all these kind of stuff. And either you can come with me or you're going to be left behind. And I fell for it. And the reason why I fell for it is because I felt like, well, maybe this is the opportunity. Maybe this is the life-changing thing. Maybe I'm being scary. But no, my intuition was saying there's more to this, but I just don't see it yet. And it would have behooved me to slow down and not move forward with it, right? And then after a time, this is what happens over a long period of time when a person is the type of manipulator that is a love bomber. They start withholding things from you, and you have these memories of what it used to be. So while they might have been very attentive in the beginning, they might have bought you flowers, they might have gotten all the stuff, the birthdays, the gifts, this and that, showed up to the events, celebrated your wins, was rooting for your success and all these things. But the minute it comes to where you see the more realistic version of them, they no longer feel like they need to impress you in a certain kind of way. And they start withholding those things that they used to give to you. So then you find yourself eating up, and I did a video on this before too, those breadcrumbs, waiting for someone to send you a text message, waiting for a phone call, waiting to hear a positive comment, waiting to hear some kind of vote of confidence or some type of appreciation or something along those lines, or just a simple compliment. You're always in that mode of trying to get that approval. And I'll say this because when I was married, I was a huge, I'll say, a practitioner. I don't like to say victim of this, but I was on the receiving end of it because I really didn't know that it was a manipulative agenda. I just thought it was an actual relationship issues. Must be an issue. Let's fix it, blah, blah, blah. But it's so funny because I was always in that place of, I was with somebody who was very tight when it came to saying anything was positive. So it's like you were always working for his approval in some kind of way, whether it was a friendship, whether it was his own parents, whether it was me. Even my oldest daughter came to me and she was just like, you know what I feel like all the time? I'm like, I know what you feel like because I know who you're dealing with. But I didn't know that it would transfer to children. And she came to me with that later on. And I was like, oh, I almost forgot. And I was like, I remember that feeling. It's like nothing is ever good enough. And you're always trying to do something to meet their approval with it being good enough. Because they never let anything really be good enough. So you're always just like, well, maybe this will make them happy. Maybe this will make them happy. Maybe this. And then I finally step back from the scene and I'm like, his mom is like that. Maybe this will make him happy. Maybe I'm like, she's still doing that. I was like, it won't work. That's just it's nonsense. It's manipulation to get everybody to be at your beck and call and do things for you and always want your approval, but you're never going to give up the approval, right? And then you're craving it all the time. And then the other thing is, I guess the fourth thing on my list is playing victim. And I've had this happen a lot too, and this goes in that guilt area. When you confront somebody with a very real issue, or you have information of something that you need to have a conversation about, you need to keep it real. This happened to me at a position I was working, and this person I worked with was like textbook manipulator. He was the best I've seen when it came to getting people to believe things. But he wasn't that good though. These people weren't that, they were kind of daft. they weren't very sharp. But he was really good at working the environment, and I didn't realize that I was ensnared in his little manipulation schemes until it was too late, because just like my daughter was saying, she was like, you don't really notice when people are having an agenda sometimes. And I'm like, I don't want to be on guard like that all the time. What I do know is when I feel certain things, sometimes it's a little bit after the fact. And I'm like, wait, something about this ain't right. Because most of the time, if I'm being honest, I'm just not paying attention to people. I'm like, I don't have a problem with them. I'm just not paying attention. And so it's good to pay attention sometime, I think, right? But you bring them a real concern, and instead of acknowledging your concern, they immediately talk about what's wrong in their life, what's happening with them, what's not working for them. I had a friendship end over this within the past couple of years, I think. It might have been a year ago. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But I had a friendship end over this because she just approached me in a very negative way and acted like I was trying to do the job that she always wanted to do. And when did you get in that field? She didn't say hi or anything like that. And I'm like, I'm not even in that field. I'm doing this type of job for that company. I don't work in finance. She was like, when did you ever want to work in finance? And I'm like, so what if I did and you work in finance? Why would you even care? And so I was like, this is so petty. I don't have friendships like this. This is nonsense. So I was like, this is coming to a head and I'm good with it. But before that went through, the messages that went through were all in her just being this huge victim and her being the person that has the issues or whatever. And I was saying, well, you know what? Raising 2 daughters, doing it by myself. At the time I was working 2 positions and doing contract work. I was like, there's not a lot of time for me to get to all these things when it comes to other people. And my kind of friendships, you got to understand that when it comes to when life is doing its thing, right? And she was just like, well, my feelings was hurt because everything kept coming back to her over and over and over and over and over again. She didn't ask me one question about the children, how they were doing. And mind you, I asked all of these questions. And what I realized too is that in that moment, in that instance, that most people who have those type of manipulation tactics, they don't even realize they're doing it. It's such a regular way that they operate that they just run with it. They don't even realize that they're causing a ruckus and that they're causing issues with the way that they're seeing everything, with putting themselves at the center of even everybody else's world, right? As opposed to even just their world. So that happens a lot too. And they go on about their misfortunes and their struggles and blah, blah, blah. But these are the same people in the next breath that'll tell you how great this is and all that and what they're doing. But the minute it's beneficial to work for them to be a victim or to be in struggle, then they're going to flip to that switch, right? Too much work. And then something else, the last one I have here is triangulation. It's just pitting people against each other and not telling the other one. Now, if you have a big family and you have like siblings and stuff like this, I had a sibling that used to do this all the time. It's like you couldn't tell her anything without her telling it to the other one and making some kind of mess or something. I remember I said something negative about one sibling one day because I don't do that really. Because I know how much siblings have conversations, I don't say negative things about one to the other because I already know that it's going to keep. I had one sibling I used to do that with, but they've become really close with the other siblings. And I can't trust that my words are not going to be held where they're supposed to be. And it's okay. I don't mind, but it makes me just be very cautious because I hate when I'm just shooting the breeze and saying some nonsense that I've been feeling forever and believe. And it doesn't change that the person knows, but I'm just saying it. And then it gets to the person and it's wrong the way it's worded and they ask you something about it. And it's just like, dude, I didn't want a conversation. I feel how I feel because I've been knowing you for 40 something years. And that's how I feel. And that's a done deal with that, you know, but if you've ever had those type of relationships, you'll see where even parents get involved with the triangulation. They'll tell one what you said and they won't tell them the context in which you said the thing. And then you try to talk to the other person and then they're upset with you. And some people do this to continuously create chaos and mess in family settings. And I've experienced this very close up and personal. And I know that it continues on and on and on. And I vowed to myself, but it wasn't that hard, to make sure I had a household where that didn't exist. And like my daughters know, it's not anything that I'm going to tell you about this other one that I didn't tell her already, or vice versa. We don't have secret conversations about the other one. Now they may do that with me because I'm their mother, but that's okay because I don't care. But it's never going to be me sitting there having a conversation talking about the one sibling with the other sibling. Like that's just tacky and it's emotional abuse, I feel like, because they don't know any better. You're their parent and you're teaching them how to connect with people. And triangulation is a method that you're using in order to do that, right? And it's like controlling the dynamics. And that little crazy person that I worked with over at that job, he was really good at triangulation. He would get in that office and have these little meetings. And then I would go sit down and these people would think they have a whole story about things that happened. And I found myself always wanting to be principled and be like, well, I don't want to talk about nothing that's related to him unless he's sitting in the room because that makes more sense. But that was not what was happening for me on the other end, right? So anyway, these are 5 powerful ways that people who are master manipulators tend to operate in your life. And if you haven't heard it already, if you haven't heard it broken down like this already, I hope this is useful for you. Because like I said before, when it comes to manifesting the amazing lives that we're trying to live, that we are living every day, that the ones that we are expanding into, even in this given moment, people are your biggest holdup. And a lot of people do not realize that. They think that it's, it's the way I think, it's who you're surrounded by for the most part, and then how they think. You can't be around people who think a certain way and then try to put yourself on the outside of it, because you're not gonna be able to fully detach yourself from that mindset that they have. So anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day.